Black hole sun, won't you come? Wash away the rain. Black hole sun, won't you come? Won't you come? Black hole sun, black hole sun, won't you come? Black hole sun, black hole sun, won't you come? Black hole sun, black hole sun.
Sup YouTube, this is Slide 8 Fry here. So, that quick intro is just to show my most recent TikTok video where actually I was randomly just singing Black Hole Sun for no particular reason and did that to try to, you know, because of the weird facial expressions in that video, in that music video. And then my friend the Retro Critic actually did duet with me, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to edit this on my computer and put the mouth stretching effects on both of us. So I hope you appreciate that surprise at the beginning. But now let's get to the video of Scott the Woz. A brand new Scott the Woz came out today. Let's do a react to it. Second react video in my new place. First to Scott the Woz, one of my go-tos. Let's get this over.
Hey y'all, Scott here. Did you know you can make any video game an exclusive? See, Scrabble for PSP may have also been on the DS, but now it's exclusive to our lore and testing.
How do you get people to want your video game console? Blackmail and exclusive games. Console exclusives are what makes the world go around. Why somebody would actually fathom buying a Nintendo Switch. You can only buy this thing on this hardware. Easy to understand, hard to stomach. But it's an important element of the video game industry, and without it, I'd only need one system, and the lack of a fire hazard worries me. Well, back in the early days of video game consoles, exclusives, while important, weren't deal breakers. No shark, no deal. Half the time, competing studios would just copy another console's exclusive to put on their own. You can't blame them because the Intellivision's exclusive games consisted of basketball compared to Atari's basketball. Now, when Nintendo hit the scene with the NES, that really changed the game and showcased how lucrative having games only available on your console was. You not only had games developed by Nintendo themselves, which why would they put those on other systems? That's disgusting. You had the third-party games, which many of the most popular were made exclusive to Nintendo's platforms. This wasn't just because Nintendo was the only real option for them. I mean, not even if they were drunk. But also because the third parties couldn't go anywhere else even if they tried. Nintendo held a monopoly on them, saying, if you make games for us, you can't make games for the other guys. Which is why the Sega Master System lacked confidence. You ever get told to just be yourself? Don't. A handful of games released on different platforms back then, but the big heavy hitters like Castlevania, Mega Man, Dragon Quest, these largely stayed exclusive to Nintendo's platforms for a while, outside of the oddball personal computer versions. Nintendo's grip on console-exclusive games made the original Nintendo Entertainment System so damn popular and basically the only option. If you wanted a video game console, you wanted a Nintendo. As time went on, though, this practice obviously became outdated. Companies were able to release their games wherever they wanted, and we received far more multi-platform games. Games releasing on multiple consoles owned by multiple different companies. Everybody gets Pac-Man too, because human rights. But that just forced each console manufacturer to put that much more effort into their own in-house exclusives. On the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, both Sega and Nintendo were firing at all cylinders to make their consoles look as appealing as possible. They'd often work towards offering experiences that weren't possible on other systems. Sega created the Sega Cd add-on for the Genesis, which could utilize CD quality sound and full motion video. Nintendo developed chips to pop into their Super Nintendo cartridges that could do all kinds of crazy 3D graphics and effects, but those multi-plat games,
I think that was much better because they didn't have to actually buy another add-on.
Well, those could be special too. Sometimes they would basically be the same across both consoles, but many times each version was developed by different people and were completely different games.
Yeah, like
And even when they were similar, sometimes one console's version had more content or slightly different content. Mortal Kombat on SNES may have looked and played better than the Sega Genesis version, but that version wasn't as heavily censored, and thus it was far more popular. These historic moments in gaming defined how console exclusives were treated for decades to come. Not only were they about exclusive games, they were about what was exclusively in the games. 60 minutes of exclusive content. What, are the loading screens different?
Console exclusives turn us into animals. Like, it's humane for me to buy a PlayStation when I already own an Xbox. Just to play a game that could run on Xbox, it just chooses not to.
Right.
You are a stubborn little aren't you? This is a highly debated topic in gaming, whether or not console exclusives are good for the environment. On one hand, it increases competition. If PlayStation puts out an amazing game exclusive to its consoles, well, that's just more incentive for Xbox to wake the hell up. How do you get more people to buy your console? You put it all into a game that is legitimately jaw-dropping, something that becomes a system seller or killer app. On the other hand, if all games were multi-platform, or we just had a console that played everything, then more games would be sold, and less time spent on making the consoles better, and more time spent on making just legitimately good games.
Yeah, and to add to that, less time developing the games, because every company, when they make a multi-platform game, they have to develop it for multiple platforms. Therefore, takes I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure it's much harder work, like different coding, different software limitations, things they let you do. It would be nice if everything was just on one platform. Just put everything on PC, that'd be sick.
Plus, it would actually allow games on the Nintendo Switch to look decent if they were played on a PC or a PlayStation 5. That looks fucked up. I can understand both sides of the argument, but let's take a look at what console exclusives are and have been over the past few decades and see exactly how we're getting all fucked over.
So, exclusive games for a console, they may be only available on certain ones because they wouldn't work on others at the time. They may be only available on certain ones because the target demographics line up, and producing multiple versions of a product can be costly, so narrowing it down to one system is for the best. They may only be available on certain ones because the developer and or publisher are the ones who make the console it's on. Of course, they only care about themselves. And then sometimes they're only available on certain ones because go f yourself. Nintendo platforms easily have the most exclusive games. I mean, at this point.
Yeah, that's actually why when it comes to consoles, I only go for Nintendo ones, because those are all the exclusives. I don't see much, like, I used to be very interested in the PS4, but I just never bothered to get one because I just kept finding that so many PS4 and especially Xbox One games were available on PC. So I got the PC right here. Why get them? Why spend hundreds of dollars for another system that I could just get those games for this? It makes no sense. But for Nintendo, not to mention the Switch is portable, the fact is there's a lot more exclusive content. I mean, if you got Super Smash Bros., I'm going to want to play. I love the Super Smash Bros. Games ever since I played the original N64. I love them all. You know, so especially Ultimate. Ultimate is an incredible game, and I'm glad that all the DLC is now on there.
I practically live off of them. The NES and SNES days are over and have been for a while. Developers no longer see Nintendo consoles as the only place to put their games, or if they make games for multiple platforms, they just have to get it running on Nintendo as well. Their systems have always had setbacks ever since the Nintendo 64. Quirks that made it difficult to bring multi-platform games over, thus narrowing down the amount of games on here, which in tandem makes the console less appealing, so it increases the need for exclusive games to bring that appeal right back up. If Nintendo was a person, they wouldn't live past noon. The Nintendo 64's cartridges couldn't hold as much as the competition. The GameCube's mini discs, same story. The Wii was underpowered. The Nintendo Switch is underpowered. The Wii U was malnourished. Most of the time, I'm sure developers would love to bring their games over, but it's not as easy as you think. It's not like the only reason they don't is because the development kits smell bad.
Jesus.
But because of this, Nintendo relies on exclusive games more than any other company, creating their own with some third-party studios supporting them as well. And because of that, many multi-platform games historically didn't sell on Nintendo's platforms because they relied so much on exclusives. That was the reason most people bought their consoles. Who in their right mind?
Prime example is Mad World on the Wii. Mad World, I actually have some videos of it from 2009, and It's actually a really good game, really awesome game. Controls are great. The storyline is interesting. The art style is really cool. The gameplay is just a lot of fun, and there's strategy involved in how you play. But it was a Wii exclusive that was a very violent game, and because the demographic of the Wii was mostly was for the most part like soccer moms, casual gaming dads, kids. I wasn't one of them. I was in my early 20s at the time, so I was a grown man who enjoys video games. I enjoyed the Wii for all its content, but the general audience of it was a younger audience or a more casual audience. So games like Mad World did not sell on the Wii. If they released Mad World on other platforms like the PS3 and the Xbox 360, which were out at the time, or on PC, I'm pretty sure it would have sold a whole lot better. It would have sold way better on those platforms because that was the more hardcore audience that would have played a game like that. So yeah, Mad World's a prime example for sure.
Bought Injustice on Wii U.
I said in their right mind.
I think being exclusive to a Nintendo platform gives off this vibe that all these exclusives, well, they're all part of the same family. A foster one. There's a certain...
Yeah, Bayonetta is Fire Emblem Path. If that's Path of Radiance, I love that game. Maybe that's Radiant Dawn. Ike looks different. I think it's Radiant Dawn. But I had Path of Radiance on GameCube, and that game, I didn't get to complete it because my GameCube memory card crashed, so I have to start that game over. But maybe I'll do a live stream of it someday. I actually played Radiant Dawn on the Wii, which was like a direct sequel to it, and I couldn't believe how incredibly hard the game was. They literally designed it with the intention of you playing it after Path of Radiance, not before, because Radiant Dawn, holy crap, that game was hard. I've never had that kind of trouble with Path of Radiance, except maybe in like the much later levels of the game. I might have had the difficulty on its highest. That might have been the reason. I'm not sure on Radiant Dawn. But anyway, back to Bayonetta. The first Bayonetta came out for, I think it was the 360 and the PS3, and then when the second one came out, it came out for Wii U exclusively, which seems like a death sentence because the Wii U sold so horribly. Not the Wii sold amazingly. Its successor, the Wii U, which a lot of people don't know exists, sold horribly. But I heard, but the reason why Bayonetta 2 was published exclusively for Nintendo, here's what's interesting about it. It was at Platinum Games, I think. What they said was Nintendo was the only company willing to publish Bayonetta 2. That was why. I'm sure if somebody else was, they would have ported it on. They would have ported on the PS4 or the Xbox One, but Nintendo was the only one willing to publish it, so it became a Wii U exclusive, and then Bayonetta became the final DLC fighter for Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, and obviously part of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is an unlockable. And now there's a Bayonetta 3 on the Switch, so it's actually pretty good that for Nintendo that it turned out that way. They actually have a more mature but really fantastic fantasy, really cool game that I think can be appealing to a wider audience than just a hardcore audience as well, but it's still, a pretty hardcore game too.
Feel to a Nintendo console, one that makes any game exclusive to it feel dirty on anything else. Ew. I think Nintendo's exclusive games are some of the most powerful out there. Even if their platforms are severely underpowered compared to the competition, many times they still succeed simply due to the library of exclusives. That was the reason most people bought their consoles. Who in their right mind bought Injustice on Wii U?
I said in their right mind.
I think being exclusive to a Nintendo platform gives off this vibe that all these exclusives, well, they're all part of the same family. A foster one. There's a certain feel to a Nintendo console, one that makes any game exclusive to it feel dirty on anything else. Ew. I think Nintendo...
I love Kirby, by the way. Kirby games are so much fun. They are so much fun to play, and I don't care if you think that's a kiddie game. It's not. I mean, it's just appealing to everybody. But and yeah, they're generally easy, sure. But those which are most of you, I streamed Kirby Star Allies on Twitch a few years ago on my first Switch that I unfortunately lost. I haven't gotten Kirby Star Allies again on my new Switch. I hope to someday. But that final boss, I mean, I know Kirby is more kid-friendly, but that final boss was incredibly epic. Like, it was a really, really, really epic fight. So even if something is kid-friendly, you can still find a way to make it, the presentation, like, really epic and cool. They do that, and they already do that. They've already been doing that in movies for decades, TV shows. I mean, come on, Batman the Animated Series and so on. They could do it in video games too.
Those exclusive games are some of the most powerful out there. Even if their platforms are severely underpowered compared to the competition, many times they still succeed simply due to the library of Nintendo games. It doesn't matter if this console is garbage. It has Zelda, it has Mario, it has the games that you can find alternatives to on other consoles, but it's never the same. Even with all the kart racers available elsewhere, they're not Mario Kart, and customers know that. A game that's just like Mario Kart, but on PlayStation, that can only get a game so far.
Speaking of Mario Kart, and, you know, it's the ones that are inspired by it, my favorite of those kart racing games is actually Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. I got it downloaded to my Wii U back in late 2012, and I love that game. It's my favorite racing game ever made. I love how the items are much more skill-based. You shoot it forwards, it zips across the stage, and it will hit the target, unlike the green shells of Mario Kart that move hella slowly and can easily miss because of that. It's much more skill-based. Even when you're in first place, there is still an item that will try to stop you when you're in first, like the blue shells do in Mario Kart. But the difference is, in Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, a bunch of hornets are sent in front of the first place driver. But you're most likely going to hit them. But the cool thing is, you still can technically dodge them, which is really cool. And even better is, the hornets usually stay there long enough to be in the way of the first three drivers. So technically, it's not just for the first place driver. It's pretty awesome, I think. It's a lot more skill-based for sure.
Because it's obvious the person saying that would drop it in a heartbeat to play Mario Kart.
Yes,
Why doesn't Nintendo go third party and release their games on other platforms? Because of that. If people are willing to buy your hardware just for your games, most of the time just one game or one franchise, you'd be stupid to drop that old shtick. That's so much more money coming in. That creates an ongoing relationship with the customer. Nintendo really values their exclusives. How they started the whole only for iconography on the Super Nintendo, really hamming it up that this is the only place that you can play Uniracers. Go on, try it elsewhere, you little bitch. Games exclusive to Nintendo platforms often have that colorful, family-friendly feel.
That's true.
Many times
But they can be
whimsical and
still
focused
epic.
on level-to-level gameplay compared to cutscene-centric stories, which is why games like Sonic, Super Monkey Ball, Bomberman, Rayman, they all feel at home on Nintendo platforms.
Speaking of Rayman Legends, I still say to this day that the Wii U version is the definitive version. I remember back in late 2012 when this game was going to be released in, I think it was March of 2013 as a Wii U exclusive. But because of how poorly the Wii U was selling, they postponed the release date to port it to the Xbox 360 and PS3 as well. And us Wii U owners still had to wait for that later date too, even though it was supposed to come earlier, and it came like September 2013, I believe. But I've played it on the Wii U, and I think it's the definitive version. I think it's awesome. I'm just recording right now. I'll have to edit this part out. What's up? Yeah, I'll have to edit this part out. What's up? Do you need something? Are you thirsty? Fine. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Actually, maybe just for fun, I'll keep this in here. My wife is here. Nobody has seen her except in some pictures I posted.
Okay.
Would you like to appear on screen and say hi to everybody?
No.
Okay.
But I would like to do this.
No.
Okay.
All Alright, maybe watch this video later to see what you look like, because I have it on the wrong screen. But you were on screen, trust me. The webcam's recording.
No, I'm gonna look later. I just want my green.
Which one do you want?
Well, I already have soda, so I'm just gonna have water. Well, give me that thing.
Alright.
I'll make myself.
Oh, that was fun. I want to keep this in the video.
Really?
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Well, I told you I wanted to flash your screen, but you said
Oh, yeah, no to that. I would have had to definitely edit that out if you did that.
You're no fun.
I would have, my YouTube channel would have been deleted from existence if you did that.
That's right.
Me. Alright. Love you, sweetheart. You're not seeing what I'm seeing. Love you, sweetheart.
What? I'm funny, you know that.
I know. Yeah, I'll keep that in there. So, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, so Rayman Legends, I think the Wii U version is the definitive one because I like how the parts where that green guy, I don't remember his name, but he's like this big green guy who walks on his own and you control this little green guy to move obstacles out of his way and stuff. I think the Wii U version is the definitive version for that because you just use the touch stylus and you'll move the stuff out of the way. You can tickle enemies and you'll punch them and stuff, and that's why I think the Wii U version is the definitive one, because the gamepad makes those parts much more fun. Anyways, let's continue.
But in tandem, many series that have been around for ages.
I actually have that game. I have the Switch version, and what I really love about that game is if you have your horse run like sprint, you can just run over the enemies without fighting them. It kills them. It's awesome. You only get one experience point when you do that, as opposed to actually fighting them and getting, 6 or 10 or however many experience points you're supposed to get that early in the game. But it's just much more fun just to run through everything and just run them over.
Legacy franchises that got their start on Nintendo, or they were around during the NES days. Series like Dragon Quest, Castlevania, Final Fantasy, Contra, Tetris, Street Fighter. These games feel very at home on Nintendo as well, and in some cases have multiple exclusive games on Nintendo, and that goes for all platforms. If a series starts out somewhere, has roots surrounding this console, chances are it's gonna stay fairly close to home. Until Child Protective Services comes by. What do you say when your child is taken away from you?
Ooh, that stings. Nintendo's exclusives mean a lot to them, which made it pretty brutal when they all went away. So that just meant they had to try that much harder to get third parties to make exclusive games on their platform. That also meant Nintendo had to publish games that they usually wouldn't publish. Games like Eternal Darkness and Geist on the GameCube were M-rated. And then you also had third-party exclusives like Resident Evil 4 and Beautiful Joe that were exclusive to GameCube, at least for a little bit. Nowadays, Nintendo gets all kinds of exclusives, so they still feel most at home when they're max PG-13. That doesn't mean M-rated games aren't ever exclusive to Nintendo platforms. Just not nearly as much as the other guys. But Nintendo publishes a lot of games, a huge variety to make them exclusive on their platforms. Games like DC Superhero Girls Teen Power, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 The Black Order, and WarioWare Get It Together. What the f*** is this? Most companies have a pretty good idea these days of what works on Nintendo as an exclusive and what doesn't, so if it fits the bill, it might just make the cut. Which made PlayStation hitting the scene that much more brutal. PlayStation became the foster home for many series that initially started out on Nintendo once the Nintendo 64 featured poor living conditions. You live like this? When games that were always thought to be Nintendo games jumped shipped over to PlayStation, I think that made everybody realize how much it's a good idea to butter up third parties. Now, Sony even published Final Fantasy VII outside of Japan. This wasn't just about who made the best games, it was about who pouted the most to third parties. Come on! Sony entered a deal with Squaresoft to make the Final Fantasy series exclusive to PlayStation systems for a while there. Did this benefit the consumers? That was a great way to measure crotches. I have a PlayStation 2. I can play Final Fantasy X! Good.
Yeah. so can like 158 million people. You know, the highest selling system ever made.
You keep it up.
While Sony funded a lot of their own exclusives by their own studios for the PlayStation 1 and 2, many developers and publishers came crawling to them because the other systems just didn't make sense. Thus, series like Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, Mega Man, Contra, Castlevania, these found a new home on PlayStation. With a good chunk of Nintendo's exclusives, you'd think Sony would stop there, but they did the smartest thing possible and pumped out their own lineup of games in addition to the Nintendo refugees.
Yeah.
PlayStation exclusives on the PS1 and 2 were kind of funky. They were all over the place, which was a good thing. All types of releases for all different types of people.
Oh, that game. If the Retro Critic is watching, I'm sure you remember this. There it is. The Retro Critic, who I'm doing a collaboration with, and also showed up in that duet we just did. That was at the beginning of this. He was live streaming his PlayStation Classic, and you know, he mentioned this game, and I was like, you know, I've never heard of this game. I'm much more curious about a game I never heard of than a game that I'm familiar with, or that I'm familiar with the later games. And yeah, he showed this. I was like, oh wow, this is actually pretty cool. How are there no sequels to this game? You know, it's on the PlayStation Classic. Let's make more of those. That game actually looks kind of unique.
Types of people. Most of Nintendo's exclusives can just boil down to platformers and adventure games.
That's true.
The other genres were exclusive to Japan at the time or handled by the third-party companies that jumped ship. Sony was funding and publishing platformers, kart racers, simulation racers, role-playing games, fighting games, hardcore sports titles, wacky sports titles, party games, music games. It gave the original PlayStation and PlayStation 2 such a varied exclusive library. This variety, though, made any game.
I've heard of that game. I've seen my oldest brother play it. I remember there being an incredibly hilarious commercial to it back in the 90s, but I don't remember what the game was called. Maybe comment about that, because I don't remember the name of the game, but there was a really funny ad for it back then.
Feel like it could be a PlayStation exclusive, while on Nintendo, it felt more like when a game was exclusive, it was welcomed into the family. A Nintendo fan is more likely to play nearly everything Nintendo publishes, while PlayStation fans have standards. I mean, these are all PlayStation IPs. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different feeling from Nintendo's approach. But by the time we reached the PlayStation 4 era, PlayStation exclusives finally had that distinct feel that makes an only for PlayStation game stick out. Hope you like the back of necks. Something changed with the PS4 because most of Sony's exclusives all felt like variations of The Last of Us. This was a huge critical and commercial success, so I'm sure they looked at the cinematic game with
It's probably because of how amazing The Last of Us sold on the PS3, despite coming out like incredibly late in the lifespan. I mean, I think it might have been one of the games that pushed the PS3 above the Xbox 360 after the 360 was ahead of it for much of the generation. Because The Last of Us sold extremely well despite the PS4 being right around the corner. So it makes sense that there'd be like more The Last of Us on PS4, and then like more games that were that were designed kind of based on it. It's highly unusual for a game that came out very late in the lifespan of a console to be one of the highest selling. Usually it's one of the earliest games that came out really early or somewhere in the middle, not one of the games that came out towards the end. So it's pretty impressive.
engaging in deep gameplay on top of a gripping dramatic story and said, "That's our version of the Nintendo 2D platformer." Days gone was Sony's Ziplash.
Sony will publish games that were all over the place in terms of style, genre, age rating. They weren't like Nintendo in the sense of a lot of synergy between games, but there was still a little bit, enough to make each game feel like a PlayStation game.
I'm sure.
Not a ton, though. I think Sony had more variety, though. But that variety meant that not a lot of PlayStation fans cared about everything exclusive to the PlayStation brand. Nintendo fans, they'll play anything. But it's kind of depressing to see just how much Sony has scaled back on focusing on those experimental titles that they released on the PS1, 2, and 3, and mainly just focus on games that are fundamentally inspired by whatever their developer Naughty Dog is releasing.
Hey, these are amazing games, and I'm not going to fault them for doing what obviously works. Though after they were so experimental with exclusive games before, it's a bit disappointing to see all their games, as quality as they are, go down a road where some of them are starting to blend in with each other.
Another example of that actually comes from Nintendo. I gotta point this out, and I hope Nintendo has thought about this. They're not gonna take note from me. I'm 1.6 thousand subscribers. I'm getting close to 1.7 thousand, I guess. But anyway, the fact is, the new Super Mario Bros. Games. If you saw someone playing one of those games, would you be able to tell the difference between them? Mostly no. I mean, there's some ways you'd be able to tell a difference. Like, New Super Mario Bros. U is on the Wii U, so it's HD. It's high definition, of course. But New Super Mario Bros. Wii still it started that 4-player co-op thing with the same 4 characters that they also included in the Wii U one later. I mean, if you're not really paying attention to the graphics, are you going to really tell the difference? I mean, yeah, you're going to tell the difference based on the graphics because the Wii U is more powerful, but other than that, the games look basically identical. If you saw New Super Mario Bros. And New Super Mario Bros. 2, how much of a difference could you tell? Yes, the original came out for the DS. 2, which is actually the third game, came out for the 3DS, which is more powerful than the DS, but still, you're seeing it on the same size kind of screen. Gameplay is generally similar. I guess one thing that distinguishes the 3DS one is the fact that you're collecting like 1 million coins or whatever, and there's just coin stuff all over the place. It's too easy because you get 1 million extra lives because there's coins literally everywhere and turn enemies into coins. And well, I never played that New Super Mario Bros. Game. I played the other ones. I played the original DS, Wii, and I have an entire playthrough of the Wii one on my channel. My most popular video with 1 million views is actually towards the end of the game, actually. And then I have some footage of the Wii U one as well, which didn't perform as well. But still, you're not gonna, at a glance, you're not gonna tell a difference. They look so similar, except for the graphics of the consoles they're on. But then if you go back to the old days, the original Super Mario Bros. Looks like an early NES game. Then Super Mario Bros. 3 looks really good for an NES game because it came out much later and it was more well defined. Super Mario World, you'll tell the difference because not just because it's the better graphics of the Super Nintendo, but the sprites are different. Like, they didn't try to make everything look the same. Even the Super Mario World's in Dinosaur Land instead of on Mushroom Kingdom, so another way you can tell the difference is different enemies, different area, stuff like that. It baffles me that back then they had all this creativity on making the games look completely different. Super Mario Land on Game Boy is distinguishable because it's in Sarasso Land and it has different enemies and stuff and different music. Super Mario Land 2 is distinguishable because although the Mario sprite looks a lot like the one from Super Mario World, it still, in general, looks very different. And it's much more original with much more original enemies that you don't ever see it ever again. So it all makes sense. Wow. Did you say ice cream? Do we even have ice cream?
Mm-hmm.
When did we get ice cream?
You went shopping with me.
I know, but I don't remember getting ice cream. Oh yeah, this ice cream. That's okay, babe. I actually still remember what I'm talking about. I think I've basically finished what I was saying.
You didn't have to put the back out.
How many do you want?
One.
One. Okay. Sounds good. I think this is going to be an ongoing gag in this house. Alright. Love you, sweetheart. Okay. Alright. Remember earlier when my wife was doing that thing where she was peeking up to the camera like this? She was doing that at the counter over there. Oh, I love her. She's hilarious. Hopefully someday she'll be willing to actually join me in a video someday because she's actually really funny. And I'm not just saying that because I'm her husband. But anyways, I think I basically finished what I was saying. Basically, a lot of the Mario games look kind of similar. When back in the day, they all were distinguished. Like all of them were very distinct back then. Anyways, so even Nintendo's guilty of that.
Which is a sentiment I hold to Nintendo as well, which focused on 2D platform amazing games. And I'm not
To see just how much Sony has scaled back on focusing on those experimental titles that they released on the PS1, 2, and 3, and mainly just focus on games that are fundamentally inspired by whatever their developer Naughty Dog is releasing.
Hey, these are amazing games, and I'm not gonna fault them for doing what obviously works. Though after they were so experimental with exclusive games before, it's a bit disappointing to see all their games, as quality as they are, go down a road where some of them are starting to blend in with each other, which is a sentiment I hold to Nintendo as well, which focused on 2D platformers a bit too much there. But you know who doesn't have this problem? Xbox.
Really? Are you sure?
Because they have a whole slew of others. What kind of feel does an Xbox exclusive have? Which is why this made no sense. Xbox was a bit similar to Sony in their early days, going for as large of a variety as possible with their exclusives. Shrek. But unfortunately, most of these were just sort of one or two offs. They didn't leave much of an impression. The only one that really stuck was Halo, the system seller. This is why the Xbox is still here today. I mean, there were still some quality exclusives, but they mostly weren't anything to write home.
Fable was a good one too. Wait, this is Toe Jam and Earl. That's Toe Jam. See, you lucky bastards. The funny thing is, like, back then, my family did, well, we started out with the GameCube, but later on we did get an original Xbox, and I didn't really know much about Toe Jam and Earl. I remember watching my older brothers and their friends play the first two Toe Jam and Earl games, but I didn't play them back in the day. I only played them much later when I downloaded them to my Wii. But, like, if I had probably played them more back on the Genesis era, on the Genesis, I probably would have maybe knew about this game on the Xbox, but yeah, lucky you guys had a third game on the Xbox. Still, I haven't played it, but I imagine it probably wasn't too bad, I would hope. I thought the second Toe Jam Earl was better than the first. I actually have some videos of it on my channel in 2009, I think. Not very many, though. Most of the playthrough me and former friend Spencer did, we didn't record. I recorded like when we were late into the game.
So Microsoft acted accordingly and just said, I don't care anymore. We're rich. Buying Rare, a studio known for their excellent Nintendo exclusives.
Yeah.
This was a bold move, and I think it made console exclusives worse. This showed how everything can just be bought out. Why build your own teams when you can just steal somebody else's? Of course, it's not really stealing, and some studios deserve a buyout because in some cases it guarantees stability. But Nintendo, Sony, and Sega all to some extent worked on building up their own amazing development teams to create exclusives that feel like they are definitively Nintendo, definitively Sony and Sega games. Microsoft just buys pre-existing studios, and that's why this is their exclusive lineup. What the hell is this? There's no feeling of synergy between these games. You know, that shows variety, but it's hard to really be an Xbox fan and care about more than half of their exclusives. And as things rolled on, Microsoft ended up sort of just milking the stuff that worked, and the opposite problem occurred. Now, everything looks the damn same. Just put out the stuff that worked and do a random new IP every now and then. It's always Halo, Gears of War, Forza, Halo, Gears of War, Forza, Halo, Gears of War, Forza, Super Lucky's Tale, Halo, Gears of War, Forza.
Xbox exclusives have no rhyme or reason to them. Microsoft just buys out studios or games with exclusivity deals, which, you know, sometimes buying exclusives is okay because, you know, sometimes the developer or publisher needs money, but a lot of the times they don't. Like, BioShock was exclusive to the Xbox 360 for a bit. Microsoft has been trying and trying to get an exclusive lineup that isn't just Gears of War, Halo, and Forza, but the lack of synergy between any of their exclusives does not help. When I said most PlayStation fans don't play all the exclusives on the console, that is 10 times more true about Xbox fans.
Microsoft always brags about how this is the biggest exclusive lineup of games we've ever had. Yeah, because have you seen your lineup before? The thing is, they aren't counting true exclusives here, because what happens when you don't have enough good exclusives to combat PlayStation and Nintendo? That's cheating! Something I see more and more is one of the console manufacturers just buying exclusivity rights to a third-party game. A third-party game that would most normally be on every platform, which is just dumb. There's no pride in this. It's not like, damn, it's good to be a PlayStation fan because I can play Final Fantasy VII Remake dozens of months before everybody else. Wow, you worked so hard owning a console where the company just paid to have this exclusive for a few months. Wow. Sony's been doing this a lot with the PlayStation 5. Games like Final Fantasy 16, Deathloop, Ghostwire Tokyo, come on, these did not have to be exclusive to the PlayStation 5. I don't even think most people look at these as PlayStation 5 exclusive games because they're so ingrained into my mind as Square Enix and Bethesda titles, and on top of that, it's not like these games wouldn't have been made if they weren't paid by Sony. The games like Bayonetta 2 and 3 are exclusive to Nintendo platforms, and that's because without Nintendo, nobody would even think about combining Bayonetta and numbers. Street Fighter V was exclusive to PS4 and PC because without Sony helping to fund the game, there wouldn't have been a Street Fighter V, at least at the time that it came out. So that makes sense. Rise of the Tomb Raider on Xbox One doesn't. Microsoft even started advertising Lara Croft as one of the faces of Xbox for a second there, right next to Forza car. Holy shit, it's the car from Forza! These exclusives weren't earned, they were paid for, which is mostly just a waste of money in my opinion. These games would have come out on multiple platforms, mind you, but Sony and Microsoft just buy the rights to them to say they wanted to bring this game to their consoles players because they deserve the best. They would have gotten them anyway, you jerks! All that happens is these games come to other platforms eventually anyway, so was it really worth it? Guess it was, because I bought Deathloop on PlayStation 5. Damn it. Timed exclusives are garbage. It's like, who wins here? You get satisfaction knowing only your kind can play Dead Rising 4 for a year until it comes to PlayStation 4? Everybody give a round of applause for these people. They own an Xbox. Xbox does a lot of these timed exclusives, but more recently they shift over to a strategy involving their exclusive games coming to PC day and date with the Xbox release. And that's something you notice across the whole industry. A shift towards embracing the PC is not a competitor, but a partner in crime. It's pretty obvious you aren't going to pry people away from their PCs. I said people. PCs.
And no, I'm not PC Master Race. Most of the videos I uploaded before I did React videos, which were just video game footage, is mostly from Nintendo consoles, but I have some from PlayStation and I don't have any Xbox ones, but yeah, anyways, it's mostly Nintendo stuff, but I have PC games. I just love PC because there's just so many games you can play on that, and so much you can do on a computer. Not to mention when I was a teenager in the 2000s, and also in my early 20s and the late 2000s, I played Warcraft 3: The Frozen Throne constantly on PC and had so much fun with that. I mean, yeah, I played a lot of, GameCube and Wii and, the original Xbox. I actually have a PS2 Slim now. I don't know if I'll really be able to use it much, but I do have one. I got it a few years ago on eBay for a great price. But anyway, I love PC. There's just so much you can do. I mean, the only issue I really have with PC is that it is a lot more expensive than buying a console. You have to pay to upgrade the PC to play certain games, and that's really frustrating. That is frustrating, but it is generally just, there's more to do on it. Not to mention, I've said this before, but the best way to play a first-person shooter is on the PC. Using a controller and having to gradually turn your character just kind of sucks, I think. I mean, I've been used to that with GoldenEye on the N64, Perfect Dark on the N64, which is still one of my favorite FPS games of all time. I played the GoldenEye remake on Wii. I have a lot of videos of that from a decade ago. What else? I played Halo 2 on the original Xbox. Funny enough, over at a friend's house, my friend Kyle, I played Halo 1 on his Xbox, 7 years ago or something. And there was this really hilarious moment where, because the AI was not that good, it was kind of dumb back then. I was driving this tank or something, and like one of the NPCs was on my side. He dived, to try to take cover, but he dived in front of my tank, and I had no time to react and just ran him over. I was like, "What are you doing?" He just killed himself, But that was way back then. But yeah, the fact is, PC is. If you have the money, PC is the best. There's just so much you can do on there. And the mouse and keyboard is the best for first-person shooters. And it's almost the only way you really should play an RTS. Granted, I played Red Alert Retaliation on the PS1, and I had a good time with it. But, most RTS games, it's just way better to play on the PC. You can control way more quickly with the mouse and keyboard, and you get so many commands on the keyboard. You get so much precision, so much speed with the mouse. Can you imagine trying to play StarCraft without the mouse and keyboard? Yeah, I know there was an N64 version of StarCraft, but I didn't play it. One of my older brothers played it, but now since I have StarCraft on the PC, I look back and I'm just like, God, I must have sucked to play that with an N64 controller. Warcraft 3, I think, would be impossible to play on a console. That game, you have to play on PC. Because there's so much... You have to be so quick to react to things. And be in the heat of the moment on every battle in Warcraft 3. So you'd have to have the mouse for the precision and the keyboard to... choose your commands and your abilities and stuff and spells and stuff like that. Anyways, continuing on.
They're never going to overtake consoles because man, half the pop across the whole industry. A shift towards embracing the PC is not a competitor, but a partner in crime. It's pretty obvious you aren't going to pry people away from their PCs.
Obviously.
I said people. PCs are never going to overtake consoles because, man, half the population doesn't even know how to operate a printer. You'd think they want to use this to play FIFA, so why not just release your games on PC as well? Xbox spearheaded this change, with Sony following suit, releasing some of their games that have already done their business on PlayStation on PC. Not only is it incredibly odd to see a PlayStation franchise like Uncharted or God of War with Microsoft Windows listed as one of their platforms, but it's even stranger to see the Microsoft logo on a PlayStation game and vice versa. Microsoft started publishing a select few of their games they own on competing platforms, most notably Minecraft, and Sony owns the developer who makes MLB The Show, which finally came to Xbox in 2021. Talk about a strange series.
That game was exclusive to PS3 and PS4 for such a long time. I'm shocked. And no, it wasn't even just like PS3. Like it was exclusive to PlayStation in general. Like I think initially there was a PS3 version and a PS2 version and a PSP version.
Exclusive to a console. You're telling me the Major League Baseball equivalent to Madden and FIFA was only available on PlayStation? That's not fair. They finally wised up, and while a PlayStation-owned studio was still developing the game, MLB The Show 21 released on Xbox consoles. You kill it! Exclusives are simultaneously becoming less lucrative and more lucrative for these companies. On one hand, they're doing more releases on not only PCs, but competing consoles. Though on the other, Microsoft, why did you pay for Yakuza Like a Dragon to not be on PlayStation 5 for 4 months? That's just petty.
That's just
Yeah, a
4
lot of
months.
console exclusives feel more like dumb ways to make your customers feel better. Like, is there any real reason for this to be exclusive? Outside of giving me a reason to scream at Xbox owners?
There's still competition in the air, and it's called exclusive content. If you play Avengers on PlayStation, you get Spider-Man. What is this called? Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Console exclusive content is either completely irrelevant or unbelievable.
Oh gosh, yes. I don't know why, but for some reason back then, I guess I just knew some people who just didn't like that Link was in Soul Calibur 2 on the GameCube, and they wanted to have the PS2 version for Heihachi or the Xbox version for Spawn. But looking back at it, I think Link was the best exclusive character on Soul Calibur 2, and I'm glad that we had the GameCube version because Link was awesome. You got to use his sword, you can shoot his bow and arrows, you can throw his boomerang, you can throw his bombs. It was awesome, and it led to great combos. You can like slash him around with different familiar sword moves, like he has the spin move and stuff, and the jump attack, and you do all these moves, and then when you knock them down, you can drop a bomb on them. It was awesome. or you can launch him in the air and have Link shoot his bow at somebody in the air. It was really cool.
Unbelievably unfair. Like, you're keeping one of the most popular superhero characters of all time exclusive to a certain console. Firstly,
At the very least, the PlayStation is the console that makes the most sense since that Spider-Man game that came out a couple years ago was exclusive to PS4, although it's still odd that it was exclusive.
that ensures that character won't be nearly as fleshed out as he could be, considering it's not on every platform. Secondly, I don't like this. A lot of Ubisoft games had a deal on PlayStation consoles where you get an hour of exclusive content. I wonder if anybody even knows what this content is half the time. And like, really? An extra hour of content? I had fun for an hour longer than you. Take that, Xbox. What about when DLC is exclusive for a limited time?
We win?
Exclusive DLC. So, first off, wow, because I made the right choice on which console to buy, I am rewarded with being able to buy something the other players aren't. Wow, impressive work, Scott. Fighting games get bad with this kind of stuff. Locking characters behind different consoles, either as timed DLC exclusives or just flat out, you can only play this character on this console. Sometimes this can be kind of cool, most notably Soul Calibur 2 on GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox. Each console got an exclusive character. But you can never pit Link from the GameCube version up against Spawn from the Xbox version, or Heihachi from PS2, which that's literally what fighting games are all about, all the different matchups.
Now, while there's problems with this tactic, it was still really cool to get exclusive characters via each separate platform. It really did take advantage of the fact that this game was a multi-platform game. And then Sony bought the exclusive rights to Soul Calibur 3, and that just threw that idea out the window. And sometimes it just makes the other consoles irrelevant. Street Fighter Cross Tekken had 5 characters exclusive to the PlayStation versions. Why would you even bother with the 360? I think it's a fine way to play the game, but if you want to play a fighting game, you probably also want to play with all the different characters and be able to fight all the different characters. And then there was Mortal Kombat in 2011. Kratos was exclusive to the PlayStation. My God, Sony, what is your problem? Yeah, this stuff is cool. Like, that reveal trailer showing Kratos, that was amazing, but it just overcomplicates things and makes one version of the game almost worthless. But this is what gets people excited. This doesn't. Wow, Mario and Luigi costumes in Rayman Legends and Rocket League.
Hey, I actually think those are cool. I love how in Rocket League, the when you hop with the car, it makes the sound from the NES games, and like, you know, you speed up, it's like a star, and it's awesome.
Like, that's kind of cute, but to any Nintendo fan that seriously said, that's it, I know what version I'm gonna get. Holy shit, man, I'm sorry.
I actually chose the Switch version of Rocket League because of it, so...
I mean, these things are pretty bare minimum stuff. Zelda items and suits and Skyrim on Switch, exclusive costumes and Super Bomberman R. But then you get the exclusive bonus levels in Shovel Knight on Xbox and PlayStation, and it's like, these are so cool, god damn it! The more I look at exactly how much goes into exclusivity rights with certain games, the more it bugs me. Like Call of Duty isn't exclusive to any platform, yet Microsoft had the advertising rights with it. So whenever they show Call of Duty, it would be on Xbox. And then Sony took that over a few years later. It's like, what's the point? That money could go into making your own amazing exclusive or working with a third party to get something made that normally wouldn't have been. Instead, that trademark Nintendo corner or Xbox stamp or PlayStation font means too much to these companies. Sometimes I think exclusivity can hurt. Like the Resident Evil series was exclusive to GameCube for basically that whole generation, and because of that, not as many people played it. Rise of the Tomb Raider being on Xbox One honestly made it so not as many people really talked about it in comparison to Tomb Raider 2013. Monster Hunter Rise is awesome on Nintendo Switch, but it being an exclusive does limit its visual potential as a sequel to the PS4 and Xbox One game Monster Hunter World. I think exclusivity makes sense under various contexts.
It does, yeah.
Sometimes some games only really work on one piece of hardware due to a certain controller or accessory or the amount of power necessary. Maybe you want to make a smaller game and handheld makes more sense. Maybe that's all you can afford to pick one console to develop for, so you have to make it exclusive. But when we get down to this kind of junk, it just needlessly complicates things. This is more about bragging rights than it is about selling games and consoles. It's a cheap blow to competition when these companies companies could be spending time actually developing amazing exclusive games, but no, let's pay Ubisoft to spit in our game!
Well, that's at least 60 minutes of fun right there.
Yeah, you know, I'm gonna have to actually agree with Scott DeWaz. It doesn't make any sense to, you know, have a game be exclusive to your platform for like four months. That was ridiculous. Like anybody could easily wait 4 months. It's not like everybody's Cartman from South Park when he couldn't wait for 2 months for a Wii to come out and he was frozen for like, what was it, like 500 years? But yeah, that's just ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. I can understand maybe being exclusive for a year. That is a long wait, but 4 months is not that long a wait for a game to be an exclusive. It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I mean, back in the day, there were a lot more exclusives. When it was Nintendo versus Sega, there were way more exclusives, and you know, because they were really competing hard. I mean, of course, it helped that both Nintendo and Sega had their own IPs. You know, Sega had initially they had Alex Kidd, then they switched over to Sonic the Hedgehog, and then of course, Golden Axe was initially an exclusive on Sega. First started on the arcades, and then Genesis, and then you know, and then of course each console had different versions of games. Like the Super Nintendo had Super Castlevania 4, which is one of the greatest classic style Castlevania games before the Metroidvania style. And then a couple years later, Sega had their own exclusive Castlevania Bloodlines, which is also a really fun game as well. It plays a little more like an arcade, but it's still really cool. That said, yeah, console exclusives are just not much of a thing nowadays. See, I had reason to have both a Genesis and a Super Nintendo growing up because they did have a lot of exclusives on both. Reason to have both a PS1 and an N64 growing up because they both had their own exclusives. After that, there weren't as many. I mean, there were some games that only came out for PS2 and Xbox, but not GameCube, and there were some games that came out for all three. And there were some exclusives too, of course, on each of them. The next generation, PS3, X360, and Wii, of course, there were exclusives because the Wii was underpowered compared to the other two. But after that, there just weren't really anything that was exclusive, you know? Things that came out for the Wii U also came out for the PS4 and the Xbox One. Before the Wii U had a 1 year head start over the Xbox One and PS4, so a lot of Wii U games also came out for the 360 and PS3. Now, most games on your Switch you can get on the PS4 and the Xbox One. And when I see that, I'm just like, why even get the PS4? You can play it on the go on your Switch. Yeah, sure, the PS4 is more powerful, but so the hell what? You know? That's why I don't even bother with PlayStation or Xbox anymore, because most of their games are available elsewhere. Especially since I have a PC already. Most PS4 and Xbox One games I could already play on PC. And it's pretty clear from what Scott was showing that these companies know that now. They're releasing Sony's releasing PS5 games that they are also releasing on the PC. Microsoft is releasing Xbox Series X games that are also available on PC. Although even before that, Microsoft, a lot of their Xbox games came out for PC. I remember back in the 2000s, I saw a PC like at some game store somewhere. I forget where. I saw a Windows version, a PC version of Halo 2. I thought Halo 2 was an exclusive to the original Xbox, but they actually released it on PC. The original Fable came out for the Xbox originally, but there was a PC version that came out like a year later. I mean, it makes sense because Microsoft, they do Windows, they're PC, and Microsoft is Xbox, so it makes sense. because of that. But like if you already have a good enough computer, why would you spend hundreds of dollars to get a new Xbox or a new PlayStation if you can already do all that stuff on your PC? There's not much a point. I mean, yeah, there is the frustration of having to upgrade your computer so it can run more powerful software. But I mean, the upgrades are going to cost you less than buying a new console, you know? Anyways, I think that'll do it for this video. I had a lot of fun making this. Had a lot of fun with my wife, interrupting a couple times. It's wonderful. We're really happy in our new place. I'm happy that I can actually record these at home now instead of being in my car or being out in a public place doing this. It's awesome. And that's going to be the plan from now on. All these React videos, my intention is to record them right here at home. And to add to that, I do have plans for a brand new original series on here, which will be a lot of fun to make. I'll have to get a green screen for one of them at least, but it's going to be a blast. Now I actually have more time to work on this at home. Of course, I still got to go out and work my job because I don't make much from monetization. I've monetized, but I don't make much from it. So I still got to work my job, but you know, I can still make original stuff now and not just make React videos. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Please like, comment, subscribe, click that bell icon to add me notifications. I do have other Scott the Woz videos that I've reacted to, many of them. I haven't reacted to every Scott the Woz. I only started doing React videos in 2020. And there are some Scott the Woz videos I just didn't react to when they came out at all. But and there are some videos that kind of got lost in the fold. When I first started making these, I used to actually try to edit them and make them, take out a bunch of random stuff that was in there. But it was just too time consuming to record these and edit them and upload them when I had work to do and other stuff going on. That I'll save for my bigger projects, like that Sonic movie review I uploaded back on July 29th. Check that out. I worked really hard on that video. And some upcoming projects like my collaboration with the Retro Critic, that guy you just saw doing that duet with me on TikTok at the beginning of this video. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Check out my playlist of other Scott the Woz React videos. I have a whole lot of them. And check out the other stuff I react to, and check out my more original stuff like that Sonic movie review or my compilation of my old comedy videos that I've uploaded to a secondary channel secondary channels from 2009 to 2020. Well, actually, not secondary channels then. All my secondary channels were discontinued before then, but a bunch of comedies I had uploaded over the years that are now put together in one compilation. Check that out as well if you get a chance, because that's all that stuff's original stuff that I made back when I had more film aspirations. But look forward to my original stuff that's coming. I do have that Family Guy theory video that I kind of forgot about for a while, but I want to actually get back to scripting on that and get that done. Anyways, thank you so much. You guys have a good one.